Hi, I'm Allison Morris, and welcome to another episode of the Full Potential Parenting Podcast. Today, I wanted to go over some nervous system basics. I think it's really important for everyone to have some basic understanding of their neurophysiology. It can really help you understand why you get triggered, how you react the way you do, and also help you understand a little bit more about what your children might be going through as well. The basis of what I'm going to talk about is really polyvagal theory, which is a theory enunciated by Dr. Stephen Porges many years ago now. And we're not going to go into a lot of the complicated details of it. So here's really what I want you to know. Our nervous systems are essentially designed with three priorities in mind. The first priority and the system that developed first, evolutionarily speaking, is to keep us alive. This is represented by the freeze state. And I'll go back over these a little bit later. The second most important priority is to keep us safe. And this is functionally represented by the fight or flight response, otherwise known as the sympathetic response. Then the final priority of our nervous system and the function that developed the last, evolutionarily speaking, is the social engagement system. So let's talk a little bit more about these. And here's what's so crucial to know about how this all works. As I mentioned, they developed in order of freeze, then fight or flight, then social engagement. And they go offline in reverse evolutionary order. So that means, and this is so important to know, that our social engagement systems are the first things to go offline when we feel threatened, when we feel scared, when we feel like we're in danger. The important part of this to know, though, is that there is a kind of a sixth sense almost that is engaged or involved in that threat detection process, something that Stephen Porges calls neuroception. Neuroception is completely subconscious. We are not aware of it happening, but this is a process that is always, I would say, well, even when I think we're in a deep sleep, the neuroception process doesn't go away entirely. But it's always scanning for danger. It's always scanning for threats. And then it alerts us to them. But the things that it determines are threatening may surprise you. And we're going to talk way more about neuroception and some of the threat cues that your neuroceptive sense picks up on that may surprise you. But for now, just know that if your kiddo is falling apart, getting really angry, and you can't figure out why, or it just there doesn't seem to be a logical reason, right? Nothing really major's happened, or, maybe there was a slight, right? Somebody said something that was just, to your ears sounds like not that big a deal, and they completely lose it. Neuroception helps us understand in part why that is. So back to our nervous system and how things go offline. So our social engagement system is the system that allows us to relate to each other. This is the system that allows us to, in part, engage in, more intimate relationships with people, including, deep friendships. This is the part of us that allows us to engage socially with other human beings. And this is where we're relaxed. We have access to the upper parts of our brain. Ideas come to us. Creativity is available to us. Right. This is when we feel good. This is when we can have a laugh. This is a nice state to be in. And yet it eludes a lot of our kids, and then increasingly, I think, a lot of parents, a lot. When that goes offline due to the neuroception, right, picking up a threat, we end up going into the fight or flight response. And of course, the purpose of the fight or flight response is to protect us, is to keep us safe. We lose access to our higher thinking at that point, right? Our prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline, or its capacity is severely diminished. And part of that is a blood flow issue. We literally lose blood from that part of our brain, and it's diverted to the parts of our body, excuse me, that will let us either stand and fight or turn and run and get the heck out of Dodge, right? Our digestion tends to shut down, because who needs time to, digest that last meal when you need to be getting away from something or protecting yourself? The repair functions that may be going on in the background are, again, put on hold. Our immune function shuts down or is highly diminished. So all of these things happen pretty much instantaneously when we go into a fight or flight response. If the threat is so severe that your brain body, again, this is not a conscious decision, decides that your very life is in danger, right? You might actually die. Then we get placed, again, involuntarily, subconsciously, into a freeze state. This is a reptilian state, right? So think of, I don't know, like alligators or something. It's an immobilization state. This can be where you're dissociating. It can literally mean that you can't move. Your heart rate slows down. You might actually even lose consciousness. You might faint. Heart rate slows down. Blood pressure drops. This is a adaptive response that works really well for reptiles, but it's not healthy or sustainable in mammals. So if you've seen, right, we talk about playing possum, right? The possum isn't playing possum on purpose. The possum plays dead in order essentially to fool its prey into believing that it is dead, and then the kind of predator instinct dies down, and often then the predator will lose interest and go away, and then the possum can hop back up and run away. But the possum isn't doing that consciously or on purpose, right? That is its threat detection system or nervous system sort of turning on that response as a life-saving mechanism. There's a whole lot more to be said about all of this, but I want to mostly just press upon you the fact of the priorities of the nervous system. Again, number one, to keep you alive. Number two, to keep you safe. And number three, to keep you socially engaged and in relationship and in connection with other people. I mean, that is also actually part of our survival strategy, right? We're built for connection. We live in communities. We need that interaction with other people. But when our neuroception picks up on a threat, it's going to flip the switch, whether our conscious brains believe that it's rational or makes sense or is, whether it's overreacting, any of that stuff. So I want you to just understand that often when we think our children are overreacting, it may well be the case that they truly do not have control over how they are behaving. Now, that's not to say that we don't hold people responsible for their behaviors or their words or their actions. But it is really critical to understand how this works functionally from a nervous system perspective, so that you have a little bit more compassion, perhaps, certainly much more understanding about how this works. Then you can help your child maybe understand a little bit more what's going on. And then what can you do? Then you can work on ways to help the nervous system essentially calm down, because what can happen is that we can get into these patterns where that detection system is tripped too quickly, too easily. Some people talk about it as being sort of hijacked by your amygdala. Your amygdala, which is like the little fear center in your brain, is forever, again, identifying threats where threats don't actually objectively exist. But if your amygdala is telling you you're in danger, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or whether anyone else thinks it's objective or realistic or makes sense or plausible or any of those other things. Now, again, this is not to sort of make excuses for any of us being violent or aggressive or any of these other things that we might be seeing in our children. But it gives you, I hope, a little bit better understanding of how their system may be wired, and then gives you an opportunity to look at things a little bit better, a different way, so that you're not assuming necessarily that your child is purposely misbehaving or being defiant, again, on purpose, that they're making a conscious choice to behave in certain ways. It may well be that it is not a conscious choice at all. So, more to say about this, but I wanted to give you a broad summary of these concepts, and we will definitely be returning to discuss some of this in a little bit more detail in future episodes. Thank you so much for joining me for today's show. And as always, if you'd like more support, please hop on over to parentingmasterclass.com. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm Allison Morris. Bye-bye for now.